Hello, everybody. Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw! I just slapped my knee. Yeehaw! Thank you all for being here. It's Monday. On Mondays, we do tier lists. On Wednesdays, come on, Jake. Why can't you ever say this? On Wednesdays, we wear pink. I wanted to make a more straightforward one than I have in a little while. This is just going to be a solo queue tier list. I've been asked for this one a lot. 99% of players, I don't know if it's that, but 90 to 95, I would say, percent of players are probably playing in solo, duo, maybe even trios. 5 stacks, this is going to be a little different. I'll talk about that a little bit as we go. But in general, this is a tier list for everyone playing the game in most all situations. Let me take you on over to it. Okay, here we are. And I'm mirrored. Whoa! Kind of freaks me out when I look at it. We've got our tiers here. We have the God tier, good and they know it tier, B tier. Still got a B tier. Not the worst tier, and I love you, but no. So all this is where this Pokemon fits into sort of ranking when thinking about playing them in solo. In general, I will say this, I say this all the time, you can play anyone, you can get good with anyone, you can be the best with any of these Pokemon. There are just some that make it a little harder, especially when it's solo. Just to talk about what it's like in 5-person games right now, there is a very rigid meta that people are playing with right now, and it's because it really works well. You'll see someone like Lucario. I'm just going to kind of show you lanes really quick. You'll see Lucario in the top lane because they can play a lane by themselves. You will then see someone in the jungle. Let's imagine this section right here is the center area. You'd see maybe a Zeraora in the jungle, possibly a Talon, Greninja, something like this hanging out in the center area. Also, things like Venusaur and stuff like that kind of make their way in there. And then in the bottom lane, you have 3 Pokemon in the bottom lane. It's usually Mr. Mime, Snorlax, Pikachu. I've seen some Ninetales. I've also seen Venusaur thrown down in this lane a little bit. Every once in a while, a Mamoswine. Eldegoss is almost guaranteed to be down there. Sylveon makes some appearances. And these are 99% of the Pokemon I see when people are playing coordinated 5-person teams. Every once in a while, you see a Char. Maybe in the middle. I've seen Ren run that pretty well. What else do you see? Not much. Really not much. Blastoise was being used, but not much anymore. I see Wiggly from time to time. Anyway, the whole point of this being the meta when you're playing a 5-person game feels a lot different from playing solo queue. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what you see. Oh, Cinder. Sorry, Cinder. You see Cinder as well. Pretty popular Pokemon, Jake. But anyway, regardless of if I've missed one or two here, the point of this list isn't showing you what the 5-stack meta is right now. I just wanted to give you an idea of how solo queue and 5-stack look different, because not all of these Pokemon are even that good solo. A lot of them are pretty good. But let's begin our solo list. Come on down, everybody. Come on down to this thing. Oh yeah. Oh, I gotta call out Crashy. Crashy made this little tier list here. Crashy, I love you, but no. So Crashy hangs out there in I love you, but no category. So here are my thoughts. I'm gonna just give you all of the Pokemon that I think are pretty good, all the Pokemon that I think are good, but they're better choices, and then ones that are kind of teetering near the bottom, and then a few that I think are really tough to play solo. Again, play whoever you want. You know, you can win with any of these Pokemon. I've seen amazing people with all of these Mons. Let's start with one of my favorites, Cramaran. Cramaran, I think, used to hang out kind of in the B tier a little bit when the game first started. Now I think it is in the not the worst category. It might even teeter into the I love you, but no, if I'm being honest. It's one of the harder Pokemons to solo with. Its Unite move got worse. Its dive build is probably better solo, but in general, the amazing thing about Cram was all the CC it provided as a ranged attacker, sort of that artillery mage with a lot of crowd control effects. Boy, I almost want to put it down here. It's one of my favorite Pokemon in the game. I really hope they make it a Cowboy soon. I will still play it, but yeah, I think it's hard. I might put it in I love you, but no. It's a tough one to play solo. It really is. Charizard. Charizard's pretty good. I think Charizard's a solid B tier. It's not one of the good and they know it. It's up there, though. It's a good Pokemon. This might be the top of the B tier. Nothing wrong with it. The issue is it takes a little while to evolve. A lot of people don't want to give you jungle, and because they don't want to give you jungle and it takes a little while to evolve, sometimes you're stuck in lane. Your lane can be a little tough, so that's why I put it here in the B tier. However, once you get that Unite move, you are a force to be reckoned with, and it's pretty good. It might go into good, and they know it tier. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Let's see. Who do I want to go to next? Let's talk about... So we've got a B. We've got a not the worst. Let's do a good and they know. You know what? I'll just put it in there. Lucario. Lucario, I'm not sure who's going in the God tier yet. I actually did this list a little earlier, and I'm kind of debating a few in the God tier. Lucario's definitely in consideration. Lucario's laning phase is absolutely amazing. You don't even need to have a competent person in lane with you. Because of that, they are really self-sufficient, and you're going to do well with Lucario if you know how to play Lucario. Every part of his kit's good. Every build is good. Lucario is Lucario, and it's great. So if you're playing Lucario, you can score. The enemy team can't stop you. You can stack your attack weight. You can KO people with Power Up Punch. You can steal objectives. You can KO entire enemy teams with extreme speed. Lucario is very, very good. It's solo queue. I feel like it actually drops off a little in solo queue compared to 5-man. In 5-man, or 5-stack play, 5 coordinated people playing this game, it is basically a meta-defining Pokemon. It plays the entire top lane. So, in that sense, it's the most useful Pokemon in the game, essentially. And in solo, I think it's still very, very good, but it isn't quite as meta-defining in solo queue. Still one of the best in the game, for sure. I love you, but no. Well, you all had to know it was coming, so I'll just put it in here, Garchomp. I love Garchomp. It's a little better than Crashy. This is going to be a fun bit. I love Garchomp, but I really do. I really like playing Garchomp. Again, you can win with Garchomp, but it feels like you're putting your team at a disadvantage, or if you have one in your team is at a disadvantage. Similar to Char, it takes a long time to evolve, is not useful for a very, very long time. Still, even when it becomes useful, people can really shut you down easily. One of the hardest things about Garchomp is how easy it is to shut them down. You just walk away from them. Doesn't matter how good you are. I could be playing against the best Garchomp in the world. I could still walk away from it. So because of that, I find that Garchomp is one of the toughest Pokemon to play in the game in basically any sense. You don't see it in tournaments. You don't see it in solo. It still needs some love. I hope it gets some love from the developers because I want to see this Pokemon in a better position. The nice thing about Garchomp, the thing that kind of moves it up to not the worst at times, is you can solo objectives with it. However, now that the lanes are split, this is kind of interesting because before, you could solo an objective and people might not show up, but now less people rotate. So a lot of times I see people still in both lanes, and now all of a sudden you can't really take the objective because all you're doing is chipping it all the way down for someone else to hit it. Again, you could be the best Garchomp in the world and you would probably eat my lunch. But for now, I would say I love you, but no. I really wouldn't recommend picking this Pokemon, unfortunately. Okay. Let's see. How about, well, God tier we'll wait on. So I'll just grab one at random. Serena, you're here. Better than Crashy, but we don't know anything about you. Okay, let's see. I'll grab Pikachu. Pikachu, I think, is either not the worst or B. Here's the issue with Pikachu. The issue is it's still a little light on damage late game, and it has very little mobility. So when you're playing solo, one of the issues you run into is you might not have a good defender or support or someone tanking some of the damage, pushing enemies around, peeling them away from you, a Pikachu, one of the squishier Pokemon. I'll even say it's maybe near the bottom of B at this point because it is better than Cram. I think it's just damage output is pretty good right now, but you still run into some of the same issues. Very little mobility, really, really squishy, and you can't steal objectives as easily as some of the others. One of the big things I look for when I'm playing solo is, do you have the ability to get the objective? And when I talk about objectives, I mean Dreadnought, Rotom, Zapdos. Do you have the ability to get those? And then in an important but a more minor way, the Pokemon, the wild Pokemon between the lane here that you're fighting over, what chance do you have of getting those? Because when you're uncoordinated, when you don't have anyone supporting you, you kind of have to be someone who can take wild Pokemon and objectives by yourself. Pikachu's okay because of Thunder, but it's really not that strong at stealing objectives. So that's why I think it hangs out in B, or maybe not the worst tier. Not terrible, but could be a lot better. Let's see. Let's do another. We'll do another good and they know it tier. How about you, Talonflame? Talonflame's amazing. Its damage output's insane. Its mobility is insane. It takes objectives by itself. You can have the entire enemy team at an objective and they still have to deal with Talonflame because you could just fly up into the air and land down on that and steal it. So when I think of solo queue Pokemon, it's hard to imagine a Pokemon much better than Talon at this job. It's really incredible. I would highly recommend solo queue players get good with Talonflame or someone like it, because if you can, here's one of the nicest things about taking objectives. Not only does, Rotom push in, you can score goals, you can get ahead of the enemy team. If you can take Dreadnought, you can help your allies who might be playing someone like Gardevoir, Garchomp, Machamp, Charizard, someone with 3 evolutions. You can help them evolve by getting them that extra experience. So Talonflame is good, and they know it. They know they're so good. Let's see here. Eldegoss. Eldegoss is an interesting one. A lot of supports struggle solo because you might be supporting people who are not going to work with you and are never where you need to be. It's kind of, you're rolling the dice a little bit. You want to support your team, but at the same time, if you're just standing there alone as Eldegoss, it's hard to do a ton. That being said, you can steal objectives with both your Unite move and with Leaf Storm, and if your team happens to be working together, you're pretty good. I think this puts Eldegoss kind of in a B tier situation. A pretty good Pokemon. I don't know, maybe a little better than Pikachu here. As a support, it's not the best because when you're soloing, it's hard to do super well as a support. But because it has 2 steal moves, I still think it's pretty good, and supporting your team can be super beneficial. Then again, look, if your team is bad, you would have rather been Talonflame 100% of the time. So it's like, it's tough, but you're rolling the dice with a Pokemon like this. A lot of the supports you are, unfortunately. Let's take a look at what's another not the worst choice. Okay, Mamoswine. I think Mamoswine's pretty good. Not the worst. It's definitely not I love you, but no. Having one on the team doesn't feel like, oh, you're gonna get sort of walked all over the whole time. That being said, it's another one of those Pokemon that has 2 evolutions it needs to get through. It evolves, at level 10, so it takes a while. But luckily, I think its kit early is pretty good in lane, so I think its tackle as well as its Ice Shard, the 3 raining hits that it does with its ice, I think it's all pretty good in lane, and because of that, I think it hangs out in the not the worst tier. It doesn't teeter into the I love you, but no. I wish it was a little bit better and could hang out in the B tier, but it takes a while to evolve and its damage output just isn't that impressive, and sometimes to be pretty good solo, you just need to do a lot of damage. Another Pokemon that is not the worst. This is honestly, Snorlax kind of teeters into not the worst and I love you, but no, as crazy as that sounds. And it's because while it is one of the best defenders in a coordinated team, not being coordinated, if your team doesn't work with you when you heavy slam and block, what exactly is going on? You just can't do anything. You can't save the game as this Pokemon, unfortunately. And then there's the Flail Yawn build, and as I've said many times, that build's fun, and yes, you could do a lot of damage with it, but that build truly is, in my opinion, a meme. It's just it's fun, it's not a serious build. Honestly, if you run that build, I absolutely put it into the I love you but no category. It's fun, but it's so bad for a team, and if you want to do that kind of damage, there are a lot of other Pokemon to do it with. So it's not that I think that's not a fun way to play, but I would rather be Machamp. If that's kind of how you want to play, I recognize he doesn't have Yawn, and it's different. It is different, but I mean, if you want to play a Pokemon more like that, play Machamp or something like that. It puts you in a better position. So I think Snorlax is in a really tough spot. It almost teeters into the I love you, but no at times. It really, really does. Okay. Let's see. This is a weird one. Cinderace. Part of me puts Cinderace into good and they know it, and part of me puts it at the top of B. I think it's better than every single thing here in B, so I have to put it into good and they know it, but it's probably the bottom of good and they know it. And I think the reason for that is while Cinderace does a ton of damage and you can really destroy the enemy team with it, similar to someone like Pikachu and Cramaran, if the enemies get near you, you're in a lot of trouble. And if you're on a team like I've seen a lot recently where it's just all attackers and it's like 3 attackers, 2 speedsters, every team, no one's running defenders, no one's running support. Because of that, while the damage output's good and you can do some amazing things with it and you can steal objectives pretty decently with it with its Unite move, you also are just incredibly squishy. And if the enemy team has any sense at all, you're in a lot of trouble. So I think this might be near the bottom of the good and they know it tier. That's kind of my opinion on this Pokemon. Let's see here. Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, I think, falls into the not the worst category. It's not bad. Used to be a bit better. And, you know, it's melee. It is pretty tanky, which is nice, but it kind of runs in line with a lot of these defenders where it's really hard to win the match on your own. And sometimes in solo queue, you need to win the match on your own. Because of that, it hangs out in the not the worst tier. I don't even really know where it goes in the not the worst tier. I don't know if I need to sort this in an intense way, but in general, it's hard solo because you can't output enough damage to take objectives. Basically, that's kind of basically what's going on with someone like Wigglytuff, and with a lot of the Pokemon that fall into the not the worst category here. Let's talk about one that I think has hung near the bottom of lists for a while, but I'm actually warming up on it quite a bit, and that's Gengar. I don't think it's good and they know it. It's nowhere close to that, but I could see it near the bottom of the B tier. The thing with Gengar is you are able to KO enemy Pokemon and output a lot of damage with Gengar. Shadow Ball, Dream Eater, I would say is the build to go with. It still struggles with a few things. It doesn't actually have that much mobility. It feels like it needs something. It needs some sort of dash or escape that works a little bit better. But in general, it does output a ton of damage. So I don't know where you rank it with it and Pikachu. They're both kind of in a weird spot. But I actually do think Gengar is much better. Before, I might have put it in the I love you, but no. But right now, I actually think it's decent solo because you can output tons and tons of damage with it. Let's talk about, I mentioned him earlier, let's talk about Machamp. So, Machamp here, I would have put this in the not the worst tier, but right now I do think it's B. And I after playing its attack weight build and playing it in lane a little bit more, now that I kind of play it like Lucario a bit more in lane, it still pales in comparison, but its Unite's amazing. It deals a ton of damage. It's relatively tanky. I think this is B. I think this is bottom B of the tier. So maybe not. Maybe it kind of teeters into not the worst at times, but if you play it well, I actually think this Pokemon's pretty good. And you can wipe an entire enemy team with its Unite. It's just literally one move can wipe an entire enemy team. So I do think it has some value in solo queue. Let's talk about, who is a good and they know it that I want to talk about? Okay, this is an interesting one. Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime is the best support solo, I would say. It's not better than Eldegoss probably in general. However, because Mr. Mime outputs so much damage, I actually think Mime is one of the better characters to choose in the game. Its Confusion and Barrier does a ton of damage. You can control the battlefield in kind of a big way. It still doesn't do enough to make it the best choice. This wouldn't be a Pokemon I would put in the God tier. However, its Unite move can kind of stop an entire enemy team from taking an objective. Its Confusion does incredible damage, and its Barriers let you gate things off and almost force enemies to fight in a certain way. It's better than every defender, I would say, pretty much solo. So because of its high damage output, I have to say Mime is one of the top tier solo queue choices if you're choosing a supporter. However, I would probably choose every single other Pokemon in the good and they know it tier over Mr. Mime. Let's see. Not the worst. Probably Blissey. Blissey's another one. It's just like Wiggly. It's good, but if your team is not present, has no idea what's going on, you're not going to win the round as Blissey. It's just not going to happen. You know, you kind of need at least one person to know what's going on. By the way, if you're playing a support like Blissey or something like that, maybe Eldegoss as well, if you notice you have a good teammate You know, if you notice that your Greninja is actually really good, just follow around the good person the whole game. Make sure they stay alive. Make sure they can do what they need to do. Part of the problem playing solo is some people are just in another realm and not always a good one. So if you find a good player on your team, follow them, be their best friend. That's what I would say for someone like Blissey. Maybe better than Wiggly. I don't know. I don't know, actually. Maybe not. Okay. Next, Blastoise. I think Blastoise is B tier. Even though it got nerfed, it still has a lot of damage output and a lot of control on the battlefield. It's just because of its damage, really, and the fact that you can kind of push a lot of people around with Surf and Hydro Pump. I think it's low B. It might be better than actually a few of these people on the B tier for whatever it's worth. You do often need a defender. No one picks defenders at all right now. I swear, I've played the last 10 games and no one is picking defenders. I think it's probably, as far as the ones who feel very tanky and move things around, it's probably your best choice in that respect. There are other defenders that I think are better for solo queue, but one that feels like it fits the role, if you will, I think it's probably the best. So essentially out of it, Mamoswine, and Snorlax, I think it's the best solo queue. Oh, and Slowbro. Slowbro, I really like. Because of its Surf, at times I feel like it can teeter into B, but it actually hangs out with these two knuckleheads. It's good. You can be amazing with it, but you still have to count on your team to understand what you're doing when you pick someone up with Telekinesis or you use your Unite. I've used my Unite in perfect scenarios, and you just see my team Zero or just walk away. I think, no, we got him. Come, help me. But, you know, that's how it goes. That's what happens in solo queue, and that's why these Pokemon kind of are where they are in solo queue. Let's see. I'll do an I love you, but no. That's Ninetales. I know this sounds crazy. I'm not sure how this actually ranks. I can't remember what I was doing here. It's better than Crashy, but Ninetales is okay. But here's the problem. I'm talking specifically about solo play. If you have a team that it works with you, you're kind of in a good spot. If you have a team that doesn't work with you, you have zero mobility. There's nothing you can do. It's hard for you to take objectives. It's hard for you to get places. You're really, really squishy. I love you, Ninetales, and I actually really like playing Ninetales, but solo queue, I think it's one of the toughest choices in the game. One of the toughest, for sure. Let's see. Zeraora. Zeraora is good, and they know it. I put it above Mime without even trying there, but it is above Mime. Possibly one of the best in the game. Discharge is one of the most useful abilities, especially as a solo player. Its mobility is incredible. You can chase down sort of the squishier Pokemon. Basically, if done right, Greninja, Cinderace, Talonflame, Pikachu, Cramaran, Decidueye, Gengar, Sylveon, all of these Pokemon, Absol, you know, like all of these Pokemon you can chase down and KO with Zeraora without worrying too much. And not only that, you have one of the highest chances of taking an objective with consistent damage through Discharge. One of the best, without question. One of the best solo queue Pokemon, for sure. Here's another one that got nerfed, but is still amazing, and that's Greedon. I think Greedon's still an amazing solo queue choice. Its sustain is down a little bit. Its belch damage is down a little bit, but it's still really amazing. Even though it got nerfed, I still think it's really, really, really incredible, especially solo, because while you can't use its Unite move and just completely destroy Zapdos, that's like when it was sort of a god tier choice, you still can use its Unite move and KO multiple enemy team members, take objectives with it if they're contested. Again, your laning is good, your sustain is good, your mobility is good. Yeah, good, and they know it. That's Greedon for you. Absolutely. It's probably better than Mime. I'm not sure, but they're both really good. Let's see. Okay. Let's do Sylveon. Sylveon's probably my main right now. I really like Sylveon. I think it's good and they know it solo. It has a little issue with mobility as well, except Calm Mind does give you move speed. Its Unite move makes you invincible for a little bit. And it also, like a lot of these Pokemon, you're seeing a theme here, it puts you in position to take objectives. It's Hyper Voice. You can you see a Dreadnought has, you know, a little bit of life left, you can put your Hyper Voice on it, and you're essentially a 50-50 shot of taking it at that point. I take so many objectives with Sylveon. It evolves really early. It evolves at 4. Its laning phase is really, really strong as soon as it evolves, which if you're smart, you get before bees. So I think Sylveon is actually a good and they know it. I could see some people arguing it's top of B tier. I might be a little biased here, but I think it's one of the better solo queue choices. And a lot of these Pokemon left are actually really strong solo queue choices, aren't they? Let's take a look. Let's do Venusaur, one of the best in the game. I don't know where exactly I put it on this list right now, but it's one of the best in the game for sure. It's Giga Drain, Petal Dance. The mobility, and you'll notice this is like a little bit of a theme. Talonflame, Zeraora, Venusaur, Greedon, all of them have incredible mobility. And they have great, you know, Venusaur specifically has great sustain. So I think this Pokemon's really good. It's really hard to KO. They nerfed it, but it's not going anywhere. One of the best solo queue choices for sure. Another really interesting one that I think is one of the best choices is Crustal. Crustal doesn't get a lot of play when it comes to the higher ranked competitive play, just because it doesn't really do what you want a defender to do inside the game. Which is interesting, right? Because you see some of these defenders at the bottom and you think, oh, they're amazing in coordinated play, not so good solo. Crustal's an exception there. Crustal's really, really good solo. And the reason is it can get anywhere on the map almost immediately. You can steal objectives with Stealth Rock. And you get to... You kind of... The same way Lucario does this in the 5-person play... Crustal does this in solo play where you kind of change the dynamic of the game because the enemy team can't really ever be completely split because you can completely together because you can immediately split off and go score and then come right back to the fight. Crustal changes the dynamic of a solo queue match. It's one of the best characters in solo queue. One of the best Pokemon. I don't know exactly even where you rank it. Again, don't stress too much about where I'm putting everything on here. Just know that all these Pokemon are really, really good. Crustal is a solo queue player's dream. It's so good. It's so good, and you can single-handedly win games with it. You can. Okay, Absol. Absol might be good, and they know it, honestly, but I think it also could be top of the B tier. Top of the B tier. Top of the B tier to you. So, Absol, I think the reason I would say it's probably top of the B tier is just because there are 2 other speedsters that I think are both better because they're better at taking objectives. That being said, Absol's really strong. Ugh. I might even put it into good and they know it. I don't know. This one's borderline for me. It's really borderline. I think it's maybe the best thing I'm looking at here in the B tier. It's really good. Speedsters are in a good position right now, which is weird because if you would have watched a video of mine just a couple weeks ago, I would have said the exact opposite maybe. Maybe more than a couple weeks ago, you know, maybe like a month or a month and a half ago. But the point is, speedsters are in a really good spot right now, especially with both objectives being really important. I like Absol a lot. Greninja. Greninja, I think, is good and they know it. If you're bad with Greninja, you're horrible. But if you're good with Greninja, you KO the entire enemy team. No one can do anything about you. You're so scary as a really, really good Greninja. So I think Water Shuriken is amazing because while it doesn't take objectives as well as some other Pokemon as far as getting that last hit all the time, you burn things so fast with it. If you get somewhere with Greninja before the enemy team, you take it out really quick. If you're solo against most enemy team members as Greninja, you KO them as well. Greninja's just in a really, really solid place. I kind of think it's better than Cinder right now. Probably not better than Zera. Again, you know, ordering this, I don't know. Maybe Venus here, but the point is, I think Greninja is super good solo if you get good with it. That's true of anything, but Greninja has some of the highest outplay potential in the game. If you're mechanically really, really strong with Greninja, meaning you're great with, you know, knowing how its moves work and being able to position yourself and knowing when to throw your Unite move, you KO the whole enemy team. You do it all the time. Even me, someone who's only, I'm all right with Greninja, you can still get full team KOs. 2 more. Let's pull them up here. Guard and Decidueye. So Decidueye is an interesting Pokemon because a lot of Pokemon release overpowered. We all remember Greedon and Sylveon, but some Pokemon release pretty balanced, like Mamoswine, and I actually think that's exactly where Decidueye is. If I'm being honest, I might even say Decidueye is in the not the worst category. Maybe near the top of it. You could put it in B tier. Look, it outputs a ton of damage, but it is so squishy, and it has no mobility at all. It feels like if you have someone blocking for you, if you have a good defender or something like that, you might be the entire reason your team wins the match. Your Unite move is also really good. Maybe this puts it at the bottom of B, but I actually think Decidueye is really hard to play solo. I think it's one of the tougher mons to play in the solo queue. In some ways, I want to put it in I Love You, but no, but its damage output is just too high. It's just too high. But I will say I think Gardevoir goes into the I Love You, but no. I do. I think it does. It takes so long to come online. It just takes way too long to come online, and it doesn't output that much damage. Even once it's Gardevoir, you could say like, well, finally, once it's level 10. Yeah, kinda, except I'd still rather have Lucario, Zeraora, Talonflame, Greninja, Venusaur, Cinderace, Greedon. I'd rather have all of these Pokemon at level 10, all of them, than Gardevoir. And that's just the truth of a lot of the Pokemon here near the bottom. Especially true of Crashy. I'd rather have all these Pokemon rather than having Crashy there. Now let's talk about God tier. The best solo Qmon. But right now, gosh, there are a few I'm putting it between in my head here. I'm just going to come out and say that I'm basically anyone in this top category are some of the best in the game. Right now, for me, it's between two. And I'll tell you, it's between Talonflame and Zeraora. That's who it's between for like God tier solo play. And all these Pokemon are absolutely reasonable choices. Like before Greedon's nerf, it was Greedon. No one was better. No one was better than Greedon. You could even say Venusaur. Venusaur's also, maybe it's Venusaur. God, they're all so good. They're all so good solo. But I think I'm gonna give it to Zeraora. Honestly, yeah. It's either Zero or Talon in my head right now. I actually prefer Talon, me personally playing, but Zeraora might be one of the best solo Q. It's probably the best. I don't know. My heart's breaking that I'm not putting Talon there right now. My heart says Talon, and my head says Zera. That's kind of where I'm at with it. What if we have no God? What if God's dead? No, I'm going to give it to Zeraora. Yep, that's what I'm doing. So there you go. That's what I think is solo queue, the best Pokemon inside the game. Basically, you know, you can play any of these, but anything in these top few tiers here are really, really solid solo queue choices. B tier is, you know, solid choices, but there are exceptions because basically everything up here in the good and they know it tier is a little bit stronger of a choice. Now we have the fun part of the video. We just kind of move some things around. We joke around. We see what people think. Boo doo 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 ba dee 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 da 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 ba 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 da da boo doo boo ba doo doo dee 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 dee. We don't know where Zarina will be, but we know it's going to be overpowered. So I'm already just putting it up top here. And again, when you compare it to a Pokemon like Garchomp, basically we're in, as I was saying before, we're in sort of an all-rounder supremacy right now. Garchomp, Zarina, Lucario, even Charizard and Machamp are top-tier choices, basically. They are all in some of the upper tiers. With Garchomp, if you give Garchomp an inch, it'll take a mile. So that's what you have to remember with Garchomp. You can push people with Dragon Rush and Dragon Claw. If you can do that, you're alone with one of the most dangerous Pokemon in the game. And if it starts getting all 5 of its attack speed stacks, it can wipe an entire enemy team easily. Cramaran, once again, the best Unite move in the game. Probably one of the best solo queue Pokemon for sure. And then we have ones that really dropped. Venusaur's nerf dropped it into the ground. Yes, Solar Beam is good, but its Giga Drain Petal Dance is useless now. Gardevoir has been, you know, very, very difficult for a while. And we see all of the squishier Pokemon. Decidueye, Cinderace, Zeraora, Ninetales, Greninja, Talonflame. All of them are in such a tough spot because they're so easy to KO. That's really the thing. They're just so easy to KO. And because of that, I think they are Really tough choices for solo queue. But let me know what you think in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. What did I get right? What did I really, really get wrong? You know, as long as we're all respectful to each other, I love it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I always love talking tiers. Talking tiers. I will see you all next time. Goodbye. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.